The champagne flute felt like a prop in a play I'd been performing for 3 years. Douglas Harrington II stood at the head of his massive dining table, his voice carrying that particular tone of wealthy condescension that made every compliment sound like an insult. To my son's wife, he raised his glass, pausing for effect. Proof that not everyone's cut out for business. The laughter rippled around the table, my mother-in-law Margaret's tinkling giggle, brother-in-law James's snort, his wife Patricia's knowing smirk. Even the teenagers, my nieces Emma and Chloe, joined in with the casual cruelty of those raised to believe their last name meant something. But she makes excellent cranberry sauce, Margaret added, as if throwing me a bone. Some people are meant for the kitchen, not the boardroom. I smiled sweetly, the same expression I perfected over 3 years of Harrington family gatherings. Thank you, Margaret. I do try. My husband Christopher squeezed my hand under the table, his version of support, which never quite extended to actually defending me out loud. He'd given up that fight 2 years ago, after his father had spent an entire Easter brunch explaining why my little marketing job was just a hobby compared to real business. How is the job search going, Sarah? Patricia asked with fake concern. Still looking for something suitable? I'm exploring opportunities, I said vaguely, cutting my prime rib with careful precision. Translation, still unemployed, James muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Now, Douglas said magnanimously. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real corporate work. Sarah's just finding her level. Finding my level. Like I was water seeking its natural depth, somewhere far below the Harrington standard. What they didn't know was that I found my level 18 months ago. Found it, exceeded it, and built something they couldn't imagine in their wildest country club dreams. But I'd made a promise to myself when I started, complete separation between my real life and my Harrington life until I was ready. Tonight felt ready. Speaking of business, Douglas continued because with the Harringtons, every conversation eventually circled back to their real estate empire. James just closed the Riverside development, $40 million project. 42, James corrected, preening. Largest mixed-use development in the city. That's wonderful, I said sincerely. Congratulations, James. He looked surprised by my genuine response, then suspicious. Yeah, well, it's what real business people do. Make things happen. Absolutely, I agreed. Building things is so important. Margaret turned to Christopher. And how's your division doing, darling? Your father says you're up for partner this year. Looking good, Christopher said, finally animated now that the conversation had shifted to him. The Peterson acquisition should seal it. My boys, Douglas beamed, both following in the family tradition. Real estate in their blood. What about Emma? I asked, turning to my 16-year-old niece. Any interest in joining the family business? Emma shrugged, absorbed in her phone. Maybe. Grandpa says I need to prove myself first. Get into a good school, show I have the Harrington instinct. The Harrington instinct, I repeated. That's important. Critical, Douglas agreed. You either have it or you don't. No offense, Sarah, but it's genetic, like athletic ability or musical talent. Business acumen runs in bloodlines. I nodded thoughtfully. Bloodlines, of course. The conversation moved on to other topics. The club's new golf pro, the neighbor's scandalous divorce, which Mediterranean island was best for summer homes. I participated when expected, laughed at the right moments, complimented Margaret's new bracelet. All the while, my phone sat silent in my purse. I turned off notifications for the evening, but I knew what was waiting. Emails from my CEO, messages from the board, interview requests from Forbes, WSJ, TechCrunch, all addressed to Victoria Sterling, the name I'd built my empire under, using my middle name and mother's maiden name. Aunt Sarah, Emma said suddenly, looking up from her phone. What was your marketing job? The one you got fired from? Laid off, I corrected gently. Along with half the department, budget cuts. But what did you actually do? She pressed. Digital brand strategy, I said. That sounds made up, Chloe laughed. Everything sounds made up when you don't understand it, I replied mildly. Sarah worked for some startup, Christopher explained dismissively. They ran out of funding. Happens all the time to those tech companies. 90% failure rate, Douglas added authoritatively. That's why real estate is king. People always need buildings. And people always need technology, I pointed out. Fads come and go, he waved dismissively. The internet bubble, crypto nonsense, hype. But bricks and mortar? That's forever. Is that why Harrington Properties stock is down 12% this year? The question slipped out before I could stop it. The table went quiet. Douglas's face reddened. Market fluctuations, he said stiffly. Temporary. We're positioned for long-term growth. Of course, I agreed. Though your debt-to-equity ratio might concern some investors, especially with interest rates rising. How would you know about our debt ratio? James demanded. Public filings, I said simply. I like to stay informed. Since when do you read financial reports? Patricia scoffed. Since always. I just don't usually discuss them at dinner. Christopher was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. In 3 years of marriage, I'd never once challenged his family's business narratives. Well, Margaret said, desperate to change the subject. Who wants dessert? Sarah made her famous tiramisu. I escaped to the kitchen to plate the dessert, grateful for the momentary peace. Through the doorway, I could hear them dissecting my comments. Someone's been reading Wikipedia. James laughed. Probably trying to impress us, Patricia agreed. Poor thing doesn't realize Googling terms doesn't make you a businesswoman. I was arranging the last plate when Emma appeared in the kitchen. Aunt Sarah, can I ask you something weird? Always. I was trying to find your old company online. You know, the startup. But I found something else. She held up her phone. There's this CEO named Victoria Sterling who looks exactly like you. Like exactly. My heart stopped, then resumed at double speed. Oh? Yeah, look. She showed me the screen, my own face staring back from a Business Insider article. She just announced some huge merger. Her company's worth like $1 billion or something. Crazy, right? You guys could be twins. I studied the photo carefully. That is a striking resemblance. Victoria Sterling. Emma Reed, founder and CEO of Catalyst Solutions. It says she turned down a $100 million offer from Google last year. Can you imagine? That's quite a story, I said neutrally. Emma was still scrolling. Oh my God, she's speaking at Davos next month. And she just bought. Her eyes widened. Aunt Sarah. She just bought TechNexus. That's the company you worked for. The one that laid you off. The kitchen suddenly felt very small. Coincidence, I said. But it says here she bought it specifically to gut the leadership team that made questionable downsizing decisions. She fired the entire C-suite. Emma looked up at me, her expression shifting from confusion to dawning realization. Aunt Sarah. The tiramisu is going to melt, I said. We should get back. But Emma wasn't moving. She was typing frantically on her phone. Victoria Sterling. V.S. Your middle name is Victoria. Your mom's last name was Sterling. I remember from your wedding program. Emma. Oh my God, she grabbed my arm. You're her. You're Victoria Sterling. You're a billionaire CEO and you've been letting Grandpa treat you like an idiot for 3 years. It's complicated. Complicated? Aunt Sarah, you own the company that tried to buy Grandpa's business last year. He bragged for months about turning down Sterling Enterprises. I'd forgotten about that. My head of acquisitions had identified Harrington Properties as a potential target. Overleveraged, underperforming, ripe for restructuring. I killed the deal when I realized what company it was, but not before they'd made the initial approach. Please don't say anything, I said quietly. Not yet. Emma stared at me. Are you kidding? They've been horrible to you, Grandpa, Dad, even Mom. They treat you like you're some gold digger who can't hold a job. I know. So why? I thought about how to explain 3 years of strategic silence. When I met Christopher, I was just Sarah. The layoff had just happened and I was planning my next move. We fell in love before I became her. And then once I started building the company, I wanted to keep it separate, to see if his family could accept me as just me. And they couldn't, Emma said flatly. No, they couldn't. So what? You just let them mock you forever. Not forever, I said. Just until the right moment. Emma's eyes lit up. Is tonight the right moment? Before I could answer, Chloe burst into the kitchen. Emma, what's taking so? Oh my God, are you looking at Victoria Sterling? I'm obsessed with her. She's like everything I want to be. Did you see she just launched that foundation for female founders? And her style is incredible. She wore custom dyer to the Met Gala. Chloe, Emma said slowly, look at the photo. Then look at Aunt Sarah. Chloe glanced between her phone and me several times, her expression shifting from confusion to shock. Wait. What? What? Sha. I hissed, but it was too late. Aunt Sarah is Victoria Sterling. Chloe shrieked. The dining room went silent. Then came the sound of chairs scraping, footsteps approaching. Christopher appeared first, his face a mix of confusion and concern. What's going on? Why is Chloe screaming? Behind him, the entire Harrington clan crowded into the kitchen doorway. Douglas looked annoyed at the disruption. Margaret clutched her pearls. James and Patricia wore matching expressions of irritation. The girls are being dramatic about something, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. Dramatic? Emma held up her phone. Grandpa, you know how you're always talking about Victoria Sterling? The tech CEO who tried to buy your company. Douglas's expression soured. That vulture. What about her? She's standing in your kitchen. The silence that followed was absolute. Then James laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. Right? Sarah is secretly a billionaire. Good one, Emma. Look at the pictures, Emma insisted, shoving her phone at him. James took the phone dismissively, then froze. His eyes darted between the screen and me. This is some kind of joke. Google it, Chloe said. Victoria Sterling, Catalyst Solutions. Look at the images, read the bio. Middle name Victoria, mother's maiden name Sterling. Started the company 18 months ago, right after Aunt Sarah got laid off. Patricia snatched the phone, her face cycling through emotions as she scrolled. This can't be real. It's not, Douglas said firmly. This is absurd. Sarah can barely hold a job, much less run a billion-dollar company. I set down the dessert plate I'd been holding. Why is that absurd, Douglas? He turned to me, his face red. Because I know you. 3 years of family dinners and you've never once shown any business acumen. You got fired from a junior marketing position. Laid off, I corrected. Along with 40% of the marketing department when the new CEO decided to streamline operations. That CEO, by the way, is now looking for a new job himself after I bought the company and reviewed his performance. You bought TechNexus. Christopher's voice was faint. Last month, it was undervalued due to poor leadership decisions, like laying off their best talent to make quarterly numbers look better. This is ridiculous, Douglas blustered. If you were Victoria Sterling, why hide it? Why let us mock me? Belittle me? Tell me repeatedly that I wasn't cut out for business. I pulled out my phone, opening my actual email. Would you like to see the interview request from the Financial Times? Or the board meeting agenda for tomorrow? Or maybe the contract to speak at Davos? Margaret sank into a kitchen chair. You're serious. Completely. But you make cranberry sauce, she said weakly. I also made $300 million last year. Turns out you can do both. James was frantically Googling on his phone. His face went pale as he read. Jesus Christ, Catalyst Solutions, valued at $1.2 billion in the last funding round. Major contracts with Microsoft, Amazon. He looked up. You turned down Google. Their offer was insulting. $100 million was insulting. Patricia's voice cracked. For a company projected to be worth $5 billion in 3 years? Yes. Douglas hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. He stood frozen in the doorway, his worldview visibly crumbling. The Harrington instinct, he said finally. You said business acumen was genetic. I did. My mother built her own consulting firm from nothing. My grandmother was one of the first female CPAs in the state. Turns out business acumen can run in bloodlines that don't have penises attached. Sarah, Margaret gasped. What? We're all thinking it. Christopher finally found his voice. Why didn't you tell me? I turned to my husband, this man who'd never once defended me, never once suggested his family might be wrong about my worth. I tried. Remember 6 months ago when I said I had exciting news about work? You said, that's nice, honey, and went back to talking about your golf game. But I would have. What? Suddenly respected me. Stood up to your father. Told your family to stop treating me like hired help who happened to marry up. That's not fair. isn't it? I pulled up my photo gallery, scrolling to pictures from various events. Here's me at the Fortune 500 CEO Summit. You thought I was at a marketing conference. Here's me ringing the opening bell at NYSE when we announced our Series B. You thought I was visiting my sister. Here's me with the President's Council on Technology. You thought I was at a spa weekend. Each photo was a nail in the coffin of their assumptions. You lied to us, Douglas said, grasping for moral high ground. I told you I was exploring opportunities. I said I was working on something big. I mentioned my interest in technology dozens of times. You just never listened. Because you presented yourself as what? A normal person. Someone who didn't need to brag about achievements at every family dinner. I looked around the kitchen at their stunned faces. I gave you 3 years to see me as a person worth respecting regardless of my net worth. You failed. Emma, who'd been recording everything on her phone, whispered, "This is better than Netflix." The Sterling Enterprises offer, Douglas said suddenly. Last year. That was you. My acquisitions team identified Harrington Properties as a potential target. Overleveraged, family-run businesses often are. I killed the deal when I realized it was your company. Why? James demanded. Because unlike you, I don't believe in destroying family, even family that treats me like the help. We never, Patricia started. Thanksgiving 2021. I interrupted. You asked me to serve the wine because Sarah's so good at that sort of thing. Christmas 2022. I spent 3 hours in the kitchen while you all discussed business, then Margaret thanked me for knowing my place. Easter this year, Douglas made me move tables at the club because the one I chose was for members who matter. Each memory landed like a slap. Tonight's toast, I continued. Proof that not everyone's cut out for business. You're right, Douglas. Not everyone is. For instance, someone who overleverages assets in a rising interest rate environment isn't cut out for business. Someone who turns down partnership offers out of pride isn't cut out for business. Someone who judges capability based on gender and marriage status definitely isn't cut out for business. Are you threatening us? Douglas's voice was cold. I'm stating facts. Your company is struggling. You need capital and strategic guidance. Sterling Enterprises is still interested, but now the offer won't be as generous, and it comes with conditions. What conditions? New leadership, starting with the board. Turns out I do have some ideas about the real estate industry, revolutionary ones even. The kitchen felt like a pressure cooker. Christopher looked like he might faint. His parents seemed to have aged a decade in 10 minutes. James and Patricia were still staring at their phones, probably calculating my net worth. But it was Emma who broke the silence. This is the coolest thing that's ever happened in this family, she announced. Aunt Sarah, sorry Victoria, can I intern at your company? When you're 18, I promised. Will you teach me? Chloe asked eagerly. Like, how to build something from nothing. If you're willing to learn. I don't understand, Margaret said plaintively. If you're so successful, why stay with Christopher? Why endure our condescension, mockery, casual cruelty? I looked at my husband, who seemed to be questioning everything. Because I loved him. And I hoped that eventually his family might see value in me beyond my bank account or business success. I wanted to be accepted as Sarah, not as Victoria Sterling. And now? Christopher asked quietly. Now I realize I was trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it. You can't respect someone you've decided is beneath you, no matter what they achieve. Douglas finally spoke, his voice strained. What happens now? I gather my purse, my coat, my dignity. Now I go home. Tomorrow I run my company. Next week I close the Tech Nexus integration. Next month I speak at Davos. And sometime after that, my lawyers will send over a revised offer for Harrington Properties. You should probably accept it. And us? Christopher asked. Our marriage. That's a conversation for later, when you've decided whether you're married to Sarah, the failed marketer, or Victoria, the CEO. Though honestly, the fact that it matters makes the answer pretty clear. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, and Margaret? The cranberry sauce recipe is my grandmother's. The woman who built her own company in 1963, when people like Douglas wouldn't even let her have a business checking account without a husband's signature. She'd be so proud to know her recipe was served at the table of people who think women aren't cut out for business. The cold December air felt like freedom as I walked to my car. Not the sensible Satan Christopher knew about, but the Tesla that Victoria Sterling drove. As I pulled away from the Harrington estate, my phone exploded with notifications. Emma had apparently posted her recording online with the caption, "Watch my billionaire aunt destroy my sexist family with hackititis and LOGIC. Hashtag girl boss, hashtag Christmas drama, hashtag Victoria Sterling." By the time I reached my actual home, the penthouse Christopher had never seen because he'd never asked about my little apartment, the video had gone viral. My PR team was having a meltdown. My board was asking questions. The financial press was salivating. But for the first time in 3 years, I felt like myself. Both versions. Sarah, who made excellent tiramisu, and Victoria, who made excellent business decisions. They were never different people. The Harringtons just couldn't see past their own assumptions to notice. My phone rang. Christopher. I let it go to voicemail. Tomorrow there would be lawyers and decisions and probably a very public divorce. Tonight, I opened a bottle of wine. The good stuff, not the grocery store brand I brought to Harrington dinners, and toasted my grandmother's picture on the mantel. To knowing your worth, I said, even when, especially when, nobody else does. The city sparkled below my windows, full of possibility and promise. Somewhere in those lights, Douglas Harrington was probably still insisting this was all a mistake, a misunderstanding, a joke. But the market would open tomorrow, and Sterling Enterprises stock would take up another few points on news of the Tech Nexus acquisition. The Harrington instinct for business was about to meet the Sterling instinct for justice. And despite what they'd always believed, mine was genetic too.